Hi, welcome to Perri Pierre podcast. I am your host, Perri Pierre. Our guest today is Carlynn de Waal-Smit. She has run Contractors Artists, which is an agency for actors for close to 25 years in South Africa. She's also one of the founders of South African Guild of Actors. So Carlynn, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. We're all very good, thank you, in these strange times.
Yeah, it's been it's been a crazy past 10 months for sure. Was the industry was it has it stopped because of COVID in South Africa?
So luckily, after the hard lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
the industry during the hard lockdown came together and basically put together the protocols that would be needed for, both online
Mm-hmm.
productions, soaps, etc., and managed to send them through to the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, which were then adopted. So we managed to get back working in lockdown 4. Also, I don't think that the country would cope not having people sit at home and be able to watch their soap operas. So we needed to get back to work as soon as possible so that there wasn't a huge gap between, um, you know, productions not being able to be on air.
Oh, okay. Wow, yeah. So let's take it back a little bit. You started you mentioned during an interview that you started dancing and you told your mom that you wanted to dance since you were 5. What was it that kind of like, instilled that passion for dancing you?
I think it's one of those things that, my mum was a dancer when she was younger. So I think part of it was genetic. I
Okay.
also think that I have that, you know, kind of connection with music that just made me want to move. So early on, I realized that this is kind of what I wanted to do. And then the older I get and the more I participated in dance classes, it ended up becoming, the studies that I then chose to embark on after finishing school. So it was something that was there throughout my childhood and into my teenage years, and then obviously into studying.
Hmm. Yeah, and then you went to Pretoria Technikon. How was your experience there?
I think any kind of university is a shock to the system in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a small town in the Eastern Cape, so not only was it moving into the big city, it was also being at a huge institution which had a various art faculty. There was drama, there was opera, there was fine art. So it kind of felt like a little bit of a fame school when I arrived, and soon realized that that was just purely in idea, because the hard work really started. And they did an incredibly stringent course,
Mm-hmm.
where you were dancing every single day, at least 4 to 7 hours, depending on the kind of day that you had, and then there was theory. So it was really a full-time, very strenuous, probably the best in the country, in many terms,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the arts, at the time.
Right. Yeah. And then from there you transition, you were working as a stage manager for a couple of years and you took
Yeah,
a year off as well.
yeah.
And then you started the agency. Was it one of the pioneers like Actors Agency at the time?
I think that, acting agencies have been around since the 80s. So
Okay.
the moment, basically, during the radio era was when, agents kind of started popping up because people needed to be represented, on radio dramas. The moment television started, there needed
Mhm.
to be some kind of code within which people operated in the industry. So, it wasn't a free for all that every agent was representing, I represent somebody and you represent the same person, and all of that just created chaos. So, early on when agents were kind of developing, which was in the 80s, there was the kind of start of the organization, which is the PMA, which is the Personal Managers Association. And, at that stage, there were rules that were put in place. So, we only started in 1996. So it was like more than 10 plus years later. So there were many agents that, 20 plus years later, there were many agents who had already, been in the industry and had made a massive name for themselves and had developed, agencies and, the practice of agents within the industry for many, many years. So by the time I got into the industry as an agent, there were amazing mentors that had been agents already. So, I wouldn't say that we were pioneers at all. I think we came in and we, possibly had maybe a different way of looking at representing talent, with kind of coming in with a new, younger vision of what that could look like. But ultimately, being mentored by some of the more established agents most definitely, helped the contractor's journey when it comes to representing performers in the industry. So, people like Munyin Lee and Penny Charteris, Sybil Sands, Yvonne Asherson, there are many of those, stalwart agents who kind of basically forged the agency kind of culture within the country.
Oh, okay. Wow, it's it's crazy how they one agent could represent I mean, two agents could represent the same artist back in the days, and then it would be like for the same like theatrical or commercial, right? Like
totally, yes.
Oh wow, that's
so. I mean, we do currently we do have people representing the same artist, but that would be in two different regions. So you may have a Cape Town agent and a Johannesburg agent or a New York agent or whatever, but it's basically location based. You wouldn't have more than one agent in the same city doing the same kind of work. Some actors have modeling agents as well because they do ramp work and that stuff, which obviously performing agents don't deal with. So, sometimes there are those situations where you have to have communication really clear between the artists and their representations.
Yeah. So how many talents did you have when you first started with the agency, and how many talents approximately do you have now?
Well, when we started, we bought an existing agency, which was a modeling agency. So, there were, I don't even know how many people we represented at the time. There were quite a large number because there were characters and some were extras and, there were a few models. So, over the first 4 years, basically, we shifted the focus of the agency to becoming a performance agency because obviously I had, history of performance and had studied that. So I knew a number of performers within the industry. And there seemed to be a gap for new, young, graduates coming into the industry where they didn't really have agents to go to because a lot of the more established agencies were full. Which is still kind of the case today, where you find, a lot of the established agents, are full. So they're not always taking on a lot of talent. So there are kind of newer agents that will take on some of the younger talent that possibly is looking. So, it's so difficult to say between then and now. I mean, at the moment, if we have a look at, we have a core, bunch of performers who, do this as a career. And then we have numerous performers who do it, not as their sole income. So it's quite tricky to say, how many people do we represent when a lot of people are, not currently available because they are doing, other things, and this isn't their kind of full-time, focus. So, I mean, I'd say we probably have around about 250 performers that, this is kind of their career that we focus on. And there are 4 of us who, are in the agency. So, we kind of spread it all across the 4 of us that work here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know for me, after I graduated from college, I studied drama and theater. One of the struggles that that I had to face was to be able to get an agent. And I got right now I have an agent in LA. For other artists that are listening to this right now, or people that are in South Africa, like how could they get signed by contractors artists? Like, what are the requirements, or do you only do referral basis? Um,
Well, part of it is a referral, which is, what we would take, quite seriously looking at the application. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would take on the talent. We need to have a look at, what is your demographic? Are you male or female? What languages do you speak? Where did you study? What experience do you have? What are the areas in which you have experience? Are you a theatre actor? Are you a voice artist? So we need to have a look at that. And then obviously a definite requirement is, if not a degree or some kind of diploma or qualification in performance, it would then be significant experience that would make you a professional. So what we also do is, if people don't have, that kind of background, then we would also send them auditions, and they could basically audition for us so we can be able to evaluate their ability. So it's not to say that we won't have a look at people, but unfortunately, we do get a lot of applications where it's like, hi, I'm 18 years old and I want to be an actor. And it's like, that's great. I love the fact that you want to be an actor, but that's not where we come in. We deal with professionals.
Okay. Do you guys have like artists that are not that don't live in South Africa? Like for instance, they have a role and they just travel for it, or
We do have some performers who are based in the UK and in America. And, it becomes tricky because 99% of the work that we do facilitate is, South African and South African based. But, there are situations where they may be where they're willing to look for people outside of the country in order to do work here. There are some opportunities that come in from outside for us to be able to, send auditions through, and then people have experiences where they get to shoot in either America or the UK or anywhere around the world, because the internationals have come to look for talent here in South Africa, and then we facilitate that for them no matter where they are actually based.
okay. Yeah. Um, I had South African actress Mugovani as a guest over the summer, and she told me that the main difference right now between the Nigerian film industry and South African film industry is the numbers. Would you agree?
I think the industries are, from my knowledge, I mean, I have very limited knowledge of the Nigerian industry, but I do think that the distribution within Nigeria is so different from the distribution within South Africa that, the way in which the industry functions is slightly different. I think Nigeria churns out way more content
Right. Yeah, that's
because
for
it
sure.
has, an entirely different kind of distribution model. So you'd find, DVD sales in, quite a large, in large numbers, happening kind of more hand to hand than South Africa would have. So, for example, DVD sales in South Africa would be, via your Musicas or any of those stores, where Nigeria has an entire different model where people could buy, DVDs and that stuff. So I think that intrinsically is different. I think in terms of television, Nigeria would create more content just because it has way more, demographic and, a larger population. But I'm not sure when it comes to international production shooting in Nigeria, that I think that is where South Africa possibly has the upper hand, because of the locations, because we have, a very highly skilled crew in South Africa that internationals just basically can come here and productions can be facilitated from beginning to end without much issue. So I do think that the international productions that shoot in South Africa versus Nigeria, I think are very different.
Okay.
But I think, I mean, like I said, I don't know enough about the Nigerian industry to be able to evaluate closely on what the similarities or differences are other than that.
Yeah. But what would you say, or because you mentioned earlier about like Cape Town and then
Mm.
Johannesburg, what are the differences between those two markets?
Well, Johannesburg is most of the television broadcasters are based in Johannesburg.
Okay.
So your national broadcaster, the SABC, is here. You then have ETV, which is also a free-to-air channel like SABC. You then have the cable or decoder type of cable network, which is DSTV, multi-choice.
Mm-hmm.
And those are basically the local productions that are facilitated mostly from Johannesburg, even though they may cast from Cape Town, but they basically are based here. And then a lot of local uh, commercials are shot in Johannesburg. And then we have probably a larger voiceover market and a corporate video, corporate theatre type of market in Johannesburg. And
Mm-hmm.
then in Cape Town, you mostly have international television commercials and international productions, whether they're feature films or, series or something like that, because of the locations and the big studios that were built, the Cape Town film studios that were built in Cape Town a number of years ago. So the facilities in Cape Town are great for internationals, even though, some international productions do shoot and cast in Johannesburg, but mostly in Cape Town. So, you will still get, there are, a couple of soap operas which are shooting in Cape Town, and there are, permanent productions that continue. So I know the broadcasters are trying to spread it out a little bit more, but generally Cape Town is the international market and Johannesburg is the local market. That's just, off the top of my head, the differences.
Right. Yeah. Because of the pandemic, a lot of movie theaters have been closed. Some have been shut down completely.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like this could be, and especially with the rise of Netflix and streaming services, do you feel like this could be the end of cinema? Based on like 25 years of experience as an agent and being in the industry for so long, do you feel like it could be the end of cinema, or do you feel like after this whole thing is over, cinema is gonna rise for the better?
No, I think it's such a difficult call to make because, if you think about, just going on a tangent, you think about, theatre. Theatre will never die. People want to be able to see live performances. Um, you know, when it comes to cinemas, do people have to sit in, a cinema and watch on a big screen? Some people say yes, if you're going to be creating content, like your big blockbusters, then you need the sound and the visuals and, you need the big screen experience. Will that, still have an audience? I'm not sure. And specifically in situations with a pandemic where people don't necessarily want to be, in groups out, in public with that kind of risk. So my hope is that it does continue. But I think with streaming services, I think television is being made differently.
Hmm.
And that's specifically, when we look at series that are on that is on Netflix or any of the other streaming, Showmax or any of those. I think television is made differently from features. So more and more television is made, and I think there are fewer feature films specifically because of that. The production value for a feature film has to be very different to be on a big screen, with HD and sound, where you can get away with less on television. And given that, we are in the content creation age, I think everybody on the planet is wanting to, consume content. So luckily, I think we will always have a market. I'm just not sure that market will always be physically in a cinema.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of cinema, so I
Yes, that's
hope.
what I'm saying. It would be more lovely if we could watch the big screen with a big sound.
Exactly, exactly. And it's one of the things that I really like about going to the cinemas. It's like the trailers before each
Yeah.
film. It gets me
Yeah.
going. It gets me excited.
Yes. Looking at other stuff that's coming up, yes, I want to come and see that, and these actors are in that. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Over and about the fact that there's popcorn, that always makes such a difference.
Popcorn. They're so expensive though, especially in the US. It's like one bowl of popcorn is like $20. It's like
price of a ticket.
Exactly. It's like $20. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are some of the misconceptions that people have about agents that are like simply not true? That you've heard and that you've been told.
That agents are there just to take your money. That's a very clear misconception, because it seems like there's no work that goes into the commission that is earned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people know what agents do.
That's another thing.
I think there's a misconception about what we do. People come and they go, "I need you to make me famous." Well,
wow,
that's
really?
not my job. Oh yes.
Oh
yes.
my God.
I want to be famous. That's great, but that's not my job. My job is to facilitate work for you and to be a business partner. Right. And I think that's a misconception, what agents do and what their job is. I also think that people expect agents to do everything. The misconception is that, I didn't hear from my agent, so they're not working for me. And it's like, whose career is it really? It's your career. We are merely here to facilitate with the opportunities that we have. And I don't think any one agent knows every single job that is happening in the entire country all the time. So agents can merely facilitate the opportunities that they get, and obviously it's the agent's job to look at connecting with as many clients and opportunities as possible for their actors. Our job is about making those connections with work opportunities, but our job is not to be a manager. If you want a manager, then that's somebody who runs your diary and sets up specific interviews for you to go and meet, like in America, you'd go and meet, the people at the studios, and it kind of be a personal go see experience, where that's not the job of an agent.
Right.
An agent is the facilitator. So we will receive opportunities and then facilitate them, rather than a manager will go and look for opportunities to facilitate. And I think in South Africa, a lot of agents do both. But that ultimate manager experience is not something that we have. The industry is not big enough in South Africa for you to be able to afford a manager and an agent. Because internationally, if there's in America, for example, if there's an actor who has a manager and an agent, you pay the manager your commission and you pay the agent a commission for every job that you do, whether they're facilitated for you or not. And that's very different from how it is in South Africa. We don't really have managers, and people don't like to pay for agents. They think it's why must I pay for an agent when I can do the job on my own? Great. Then you've signed the wrong contract. You haven't got the fee that you should be getting for that project. You're not protected, and you don't know what you've kind of got yourself in for. Right. And that's where the expertise of an agent comes in, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then there is also like a publicist, which is like
totally separate.
Very separate for that you pay also like a monthly fee, and then all of those. And then there are also like actors who have trainers, that's also like
coaches.
Separate. Yeah. And then
so that's why it's important to see yourself as a business, because there are all these aspects you have to take into account. The difference with the American industry is, you're getting paid to be able to afford a large amount of those, people in your team,
right.
And coaches and publicists and lawyers and agents and managers. And, if you're earning relative to be able to afford that, where the kind of rates that people earn in South Africa is nowhere near that to be able to afford anything more than an agent, to be honest. If you have a look at what you're taxed and those things as well, there's a large amount. And the legislation in South Africa, actors don't have the right to their image. So they
Oh, they
can't
don't.
claim on they can't claim on residuals or any kind of repeat fee based on legislation.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. SAGA is currently lobbying government for the copyright amendment and performance protection amendment bills to be signed, so that we can have the right and therefore be able to earn some kind of royalty for commercial exploitation of their work outside of the initial recording of the production.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a nice segue into SAGA. How did you get involved?
Oh, the story of being in one of the broadcasters' office when they were taking some clauses out of a contract, and we'd had some pro bono legal assistance in the fight, and eventually it got to, well, specifically around the Performance Protection Act, to be honest. And they were, well, if you don't like it, then you'll have to take us to a tribunal. And the tribunal didn't exist. So I walked out feeling really deflated and realizing that there was absolutely no protection factors. Legislatively, on so many levels, we were out in the cold. And I got incredibly angry and I was like, this has to change. So that was in August 2004. And then basically spent the next 5 years chatting to different people and getting some people on board to see whether this is something that we could do, and then having to look at how unprotected we are in terms of the South African legislation, and therefore finding a way in which we could get a vehicle in order to be able to support actors, which is the reason why we're an actors guild and not an actors union, because we cannot be a union given that we're not employees within our status of performers in South Africa. We're freelancers, and therefore we're not employees, and freelancers cannot unionize. So there's that entire kind of landscape that we had to kind of get through to figure out and understand exactly, how things worked and what was possible in terms of being able to get some kind of organization going that could protect actors. And that was, so we basically were constituted and have been operating as a legal entity representing actors since 2009. So we are 12 years old this year.
Wow. Wow, congratulations. Yeah, I'm a SAG and AFTRA member since
Yes.
2013.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so basically, are you guys fighting for at least like, residuals and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. The process started in 2009, actually, with the Department of Trade and Industry, but SAGA kind of got involved, I'd say, from 2012, and ultimately have been part of the submissions that have gone through to Parliament, working with the Department of Trade and Industry. And basically, they went through Parliament by March 2019. And by 15 months later, in 2020, the president had still not signed the bills. So there's an organization who's part of the lobbying in support of the amendment bills that took the president to the Constitutional Court so that he could just do something, whether it was to sign them or whether it was to send them back to Parliament for constitutional grounds, which he then ended up doing. He sent them back to Parliament. So we're still now waiting for decisions and deliberations to happen. And it's already been, more than 9 months or so. So given that COVID has happened, it's not necessarily top priority. However, we are still lobbying so that it does become a priority, because you can imagine during COVID, nobody's earning residuals, but they're repeating all kinds of productions, and you'll see your face, but you're not actually earning a cent, and you can't pay your rent because there's no industry happening.
Yeah.
And so there's no sustainability whatsoever for people that have, contributed to a massive body of work in their careers, and, they get paid to be on set and that's it. They don't get paid again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and especially like for TV series, I know they have like commercials, so they're getting paid to play those commercials in between the
Yeah,
series, and then
yeah,
the
they're earning
actors are not
revenue.
getting paid. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
it's not right.
no.
What would you say? Like, I know in America, like salaries for actors for one film could go up to like 30-40 million dollars. What would you say has been the highest salary for any actor in South Africa for a film?
Are you talking about an international film or you're talking about a local film?
No, I'm talking about local film.
Oh, nowhere even near that. I don't even think people would have even been paid 1 million rand or even 500,000 rand. Um, some people may have back end deals and may have earned money, from their contract for exploitation of the feature film, after it's gone to box office, etc. But I don't think people are earning, much more than 500,000 rand
Mhm.
on a local feature film.
Half a million
There's no
rand.
way we are even vaguely in the league of America in any way or form. I mean, some people are lucky if you even get 100,000 rand for a feature film. Also, it depends how long
So
it
you said,
takes.
oh, okay. You said 100,000 rand, like the South African currency, right?
Yes,
Okay. Oh.
yeah.
Um.
So,
um,
like, just to give you a comparison, uh, the rand is 15 to 1 US dollar.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
it's quite devalued
Yeah. Yeah.
in
See
terms
what you
of what
mean.
we get for dollars.
Yeah. See what you mean. And what about in terms of like revenues on the film? Like, what's the most successful film in terms of like revenue? Like, how much did it
Well,
make? Or like one of them?
I think some of them have made, in excess of 50 million rand. If I think
Okay.
of some of the big blockbuster type of features, but they are very few and far between. I'd say, 70% of feature films barely make back their money in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, their revenue and the box office. I think a lot of features over time end up being able to recoup what they put in due to streaming services or, you know, licensing to various broadcasters or, you know, getting additional when you still had large DVD sales, they'd be
Mm-hmm.
able to recoup that money down the line rather than like an opening weekend type of income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are your hopes for the South African film industry in the
I
future?
just there's so many things that I do hope for. I hope the legislation gets passed and that actors can earn royalties and have sustainable income for
Mm-hmm.
doing the work that they do. Um, and being an actor, everybody thinks it looks really easy. It's tough,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard. I wish that we would have various avenues of investment coming in to invest within the industry, um, be it theatre, be it television, film, that we can actually create more and more content and create productions, whether they be feature films. At the moment, the South African industry relies heavily on broadcasters and on the Department of Trade and Industry and National Film and Video Foundation, basically government, to be able to fund a large amount of the productions that happen. So it would be wonderful if we had different kinds of funding models in order for it really to be a sustainable and viable industry. Because I think we have the talent, I think we have the skill, I think we have the ability. It would be great that we can exploit the hundreds and stories that we can tell, and also to be able to, I think, create mentorship within the industry where you have new people coming into the industry that are being mentored so that there's a skill base that is
Right.
only growing, rather than people who've been in the industry for a long time having skills, that end up going away because they're not transferred down into, you know, into the new younger generation. And I think in some way, unfortunately, the age of the internet means that anybody can produce content. You know, you can produce content on your phone. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skills and the know-how within the film industry to be able to create really incredible content. I think the mediocrity has become the order of the day, and that really saddens me. So I really hope that within the industry that we can strive for being exceptional and play on the international stage rather than, you know, being mediocre because that's all we have, you know, money for or facility for, or skill for. Because I think mediocrity is unfortunate, and I think too many industries around the world actually are accepting mediocrity as being good enough. And I think exceptional is our starting position. But then I have very high standards, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I think now, especially with like social media and people being popular, so they tend to present work. People tend to accept work from even though if they're mediocre because of people that are in
You
them,
want to
blah
be
blah blah. Sometimes
influencers.
influences, exactly. Influences.
Our host.
Yeah. Anyway, what when this is all said and done, what legacy do you want to leave?
I basically my philosophy is that I need to leave the industry better than when I, you know, in a better position than when I came into the industry. So I want to make sure that there is substantial change that happens, and that, you know, people have that actors have rights, and that the industry is one that is revered and taken seriously. Because I do think that we have so much to offer, and we need to have it different. So, you know, in the 25 plus years that I, you know, will be in the industry, I want to be able to, you know, to leave change behind, you know, that things have changed and I was part of making that change happen.
Yeah, and I can say that through South African Guild of Actors, through Contractors Artists, and you've already made a lot of differences. And congratulations! Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being a guest on the podcast. And
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful chatting to you and your audience.
yes, absolutely. And be safe out there and take
And
care.
you too.
All
Thank you
right,
so much.
all right.
Be well. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.